Eastern St. Catherine. We welcome you this afternoon. And I know that you're particularly happy to be here as your Member of Parliament will be speaking in the House this evening. So I want to welcome everyone to the sitting of this House. Members, breast cancer is a leading cause of death in Jamaican women. In October, therefore, we celebrate Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we make a special effort to educate ourselves about breast cancer and the stress and importance of early detection in the fight against this dreaded disease. Many of you may be aware that the Jamaica Cancer Society has designated this Friday, October 7th, 2022, as Pink Day to honor the persons who have died from breast cancer and to show our solidarity with breast cancer patients, breast cancer survivors, and their loved ones. The House of Representatives here does not sit on a Friday, so today is our Pink Day. Today, we support those who fight against this disease, and we honor those who have lost the battle to the disease. As this year's theme for Breast Cancer Awareness Month states, let us stand with our women and our warriors. No one should fight cancer alone. Together, we must fight for tomorrow. And introducing this fact, and the fact that is why so many of us are in pink today, and I see the gentlemen with their pink ties, I want a special leader who will speak this afternoon on the motion of adjournment. And it is our Deputy Speaker who brought this to our attention, to my attention, and encouraged us all as members of Parliament to show our support for Breast Cancer Awareness Week. We thank her, and I know she's on her way, and we look forward to her speaking on this matter this afternoon. So, members, we bear in mind that there are so many women who have passed and so many who have traveled the road, and we stand in solidarity with everyone. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much. At this point, I'd ask that we suspend the agenda and go directly to the State of Constituency debate, when the debate will continue with presentations from Ms. Carencia Morrison, Member of Parliament, St. Catherine Northeast, to be followed by Mr. George Hilton, Anthony Hilton, Member of Parliament, St. Andrew Western. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the question before you is that the agenda be suspended, several items, and we move straight into public business, where we will continue the State of the Constituency debate. I now call upon the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine North Eastern to make her presentation.
Madam Speaker, I am proud to present the statement of account of the welfare of St. Catherine Northeastern for the year 2021 to 2022. Madam Speaker, at this time I acknowledge constituents who are in the gallery this afternoon, and I especially acknowledge the principals who are here, the members of staff, the students who are here, and my own constituency team Thank you so much. You have been amazing. Without you, I could not have done it.
Well done.
Madam Speaker, last year was extremely challenging for the constituency, and we made attempts to respond to most of the constituents made to our office. We in Northeastern St. Catherine benefited tremendously from the provision of the Constituency Development Fund. We also benefited from the numerous social and welfare programs that MPs on both sides were allocated to assist our constituents. And I want to give special thanks to this caring and responsive government led by Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Madam Speaker, while I too will make the call for greater support, I am also very clear that expectations have to be grounded in reality. And one such reality, Madam Speaker, is that the COVID-19 pandemic had an aggressive impact on our economy. Over 3,000 Jamaicans lost their lives to COVID-19 and an estimated 15 million people worldwide. Economies all over the world shattered, net reserves wiped out, not far afield. Some countries could not pay teachers. Healthcare crumbled, businesses collapsed, welfare and social programs plummeted. Madam Speaker, but Jamaica weathered the storm. Jamaica did not collapse. And, Madam Speaker, I want to give credit to Prime Minister Holness and the team that led by sound governance policies that piloted this country to recovery. And I saw where the minister, Ed Bartlett, Minister Grain, was saying that we are almost at our pre-COVID-19 status. And this is the kind of leadership that we celebrate. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the guiding theme of my presentation today is that we are building lives through socio-economic and infrastructural development. When we build lives, we build a community, we also build a nation. We move people from dependence to independence. Madam Speaker, there are, notwithstanding, we are well aware that there are challenges. We are aware that this thing will not come easy. And one challenge that faces my constituency is housing. Madam Speaker, Northeastern St. Catherine struggles with poor housing infrastructure, and especially when the hurricane season is here, it becomes even more treacherous. Requests, my office will tell you, requests for building material alone absorbs the CDF. The new social housing program, a godsend, brings hope to Northeastern St. Catherine. And the widely watched new home for Delano Tucker family in Guysville was one such benefit. Sustainable housing remains high on the agenda for Prime Minister Holness. And with the realities of climate change, Madam Speaker, we will have to continue to drive policy for resilient housing for vulnerable Jamaicans. I now turn to agriculture, the economic backbone of Northeastern St. Catherine. Minister Pernell Charles has begun impressively Northeastern St. Catherine with the launch of the onion and Irish potato program, from which many farmers will benefit. I thank RADA for their support to our farmers by ensuring that they get registered and also by providing our farmers with technical support. I will be establishing a constituency task force on agriculture, Madam Speaker, that will be highly responsive to the concerns of our farmers. And I was very encouraged last week, Madam Speaker, when the minister advised me that there were constituencies who, based on their profile for agriculture, will be given specific and targeted focus. I'm looking forward to seeing these programs that will educate farmers on greenhouse and the use of technology so that the brought-back farming practices will end in the not too distant future. Because, Madam Speaker, God knows if there is one set of persons who are climate resilient, it is our farmers. Madam Speaker, rural constituencies like the one that I represent are plagued with poor road infrastructure, especially farm roads. The process is not as timely as we would have liked, but we are making an impact one road at a time. We have impacted 2 this year, namely the Morris Hall Road and the Caledonia Road. The Caledonia Road, the latter for which I have requested additional funds to complete the worst parts. Yes, ma'am. Minister Charles, $8 million on a road that requires $40 million does not fulfill adequately the purpose for which the program was instituted. If we are going to do it, let us make it impactful so that our farmers will have greater ease to transport their produce from the field and to the market. Madam Speaker, water is another major factor impacting farming everywhere. Thankfully, the Wallens plant that serves the major communities of Cheesefield, York Street and surrounding areas is operational. Madam Speaker, this is a significant development as these communities thirsted for decades. I'm pleased to report that the pear tree growth system that is being upgraded by rural water will be completed soon, and that the Lucky Valley system will be regularized. We are indeed grateful. Madam Speaker, there are a number of communities that have good, strong source of water that can be harnessed. Bonnet has identified a source, as have New Mountain, Jubilee Town and Cocoa Walk, among others. And we are calling on rural water to explore. And I'm also hoping that rural water, up at Seafield, that rural water will be given the adequate funding that will be critical to these developments. Madam Speaker, the following is my greatest challenge with water infrastructure. Guys Hill and Riversdale are 2 major communities that need water. If Master God no fall him rain where they set some drum, they suffer. Madam Speaker, this lack of water impairs the development of these communities, and too often I am asked the question, why is it that Riversdale does not have water? In Guys Hill, water comes once or twice weekly, and the antiquated
Windsor.
You see how long you people were in power to fix Windsor and to solve whatever? Yes? We will be the government that will bring water from the pipeline for Windsor Castle. Oh, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
We have been those one museum.
Madam Speaker, generations have carried water on their heads.
Yes.
And it is an outrage to hear people say that they can no longer manage to make several trips to the river.
Right.
It costs approximately $30,000 per truckload, and no resident, especially low-income earners, can consistently afford this huge cost. Last week alone, our office spent $120,000 for 4 truckloads of water, and this is what is meant by a mere drop in the bucket. Students at the Guys Hill High School are often asked to take water to school, and I commend, shame and disgrace, and I commend the principal and staff for going beyond the call of duty to keep the plant clean. Madam Speaker, this lack lack of water is nothing to be proud of, and certainly not for huge communities like Guys Hill and Riversdale. There are 2 sources in Guys Hill that may be feasible, and I want to thank my friend and neighbor, MP Montague, for sharing this information. And they are the Falling River in Springfield and the Rio Magna near Moreland, that are both less than a mile from the town of Guys Hill. In the interim, Madam Speaker, the team that manages the distribution need to do so efficiently. And people are tired of hearing that the pump burn up. Madam Speaker, this matter concerns me. It's very close to my heart. I feel very passionately about it. I am calling on the NWC to revise the regulation of 1985 that ties water to the property, to the owner, and not to the customer. Madam Speaker, this provision is hurting many of my constituents, many of whom do not own property, and especially when the property owner may have died, may have migrated with no interest in paying off the backlog. Madam Speaker, we cannot expect a family member, in order to get water to the property, to pay off bills, 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, millions of dollars, to ask persons to pay off these amounts for water that they did not consume in order to have the service water owed generations ago is outrageous. Madam Speaker, this is an example. If ever there is anything called generational curse, this would be one such example. So my constituents in Riversdale, many of those communities that have not received water in over 30 years, would be denied under this regulation when the water does come. In other instances, some customers, and this right across Jamaica, Madam Speaker, are saying that they keep getting monthly bills without receiving a drop of water. Madam Speaker, MP Terry Long, Minister Terry Long, I believe in following rules and I believe in adhering to regulations. However, rules and regulations must first be reasonable, must first be fair and just, and with an awareness of situational ethics. Madam Speaker, many of our constituents, they can afford to pay the little monthly bill. What they cannot afford is to clear 500,000. And this is one of the things that leads to water theft. Madam Speaker, we in this House, we have the power to effect changes to these regulations. A regulation written 37 years ago might have been workable then, brilliant even, but no longer practical today. Madam Speaker, Senator, the Honorable Matthew Samuda, is a brilliant and conscientious minister. Absolutely. And I know that even now, he's preparing to have a meeting with me to tour the constituency of Northeastern St. Catherine. Madam Speaker, Mr. JPS, you are the next one. Our utility provider needs to show respect and regard for our consumers in rural Jamaica. Madam Speaker, as soon as the sky becomes overcast, light gone, sometimes for no apparent reason, there is an outage for hours, there is an outage for days. JPS, do you know that this spells disaster for schools, for a shopkeeper, for businesses? You talk about poor governance, the things that, the challenges that we face today, MP Denise Daly. We would not have been facing them had your government do what they were supposed to do. And so, MP Daly, we are committed. We are so committed. And the Jamaican people have said, your time come and gone. About electricity, the people of Jamaica, we are saying to you, power cut. Time gone. Madam Speaker.
Time come.
Madam Speaker, we urge JPS. We are calling on our utility provider to be sensitive to the needs of that chicken farmer. That chicken farmer, having just killed, they hear say what? Life gone, light gone, and the entire stock is spoiled. Madam Speaker, this happens why? Because you did not clear overhanging trees. Do you know what it means to a student? And here I thank Minister Vaz for demanding more from our utility providers. And we have submitted areas in our constituency that are most affected, and we look forward to the improvement in the quality of service given to rural constituencies. Madam Speaker, one of the most effective ways in which we can demonstrate that we respect and care about people is by improving the quality of service that we give to them. When we speak about the ease of doing business, Minister Cuthbert Flynn, it isn't only about how we treat foreigners, but how we treat ourselves right here in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, I understand that we want to ensure that our systems are foolproof. But integral systems are efficient systems, and efficient systems get the job done with ease to the customer. In discussion of roads, Minister Warmington, what would we in northeastern St. Catherine do without you? Minister Warmington, we thank you for touring. The Minister, yes, thank you. The Minister of Works, thank you for touring northeastern St. Catherine 3 times, a rough terrain. And we are happy that you had the dedication to come and see it firsthand. Madam Speaker, northeastern St. Catherine is one of those constituencies, we would say, that has long been neglected, but a new day has come. This year we continued work on the Geisel Main Road, patched Riversdale to Williamsfield, rehabilitated parts of Williamsfield to Mount Industry, and the much-awaited Troja Road Main Road. And York Street have been put to tender. We are anticipating that works on this heavily traversed road will begin soon. Madam Speaker, this barely scratches the surface of the magnitude of the work needed, but I greatly appreciate getting these roads done. I am also lobbying for the Cassava River to Glengoff Road. Equally so, the big community of Treadways. The Cheesefield community is desperate for better roads, but I have encouraged constituents to be patient as the community rehabilitation announced by Minister Mackenzie will be worth the wait. Speaker, there is an issue that I find deeply concerning. Parochial roads, parish council roads, community roads, whatever we call these roads, where our constituents live on. 90% of these roads fall under the municipal authority. Madam Speaker, constituents don't care about which road is MP road and which road is councillor road. And I certainly do not make this distinction when confronted by the poor state of the roads. Madam Speaker, the reality is that our councillors do not get sufficient resources to reasonably fix these roads. Madam Speaker, some of these roads, for example, Bonnet Road, Moreland Road, Berkshire Road, Middlesex Road, will take significant funds to repair. The allocation, which varies in each municipality, is not enough to allow a councillor to repair a road in his division. The few who manage to do so either lobby the minister, who does not have an inexhaustible source of funds, or they save their allocation over a 3-year period or so. Let's say they save 5 or 7 million at the expense of other things that they are supposed to be doing. This is at best a patching program. So a parish council in a parish council division like Guysill, which may have 20 or more roads, may not get the attention it needs because there just isn't enough funds. Madam Speaker, requests for marl, cement, shingle, or sometimes even a request to clear the landslide. These are things that they call on members of parliament from time to time to do work that in the short term that can alleviate these situations. And every MP, we can tell Jamaica that we do not have that source of funds where someone is going to say, come and clear this. Many MPs have to find money out of pocket to send that back home to clear. Madam Speaker, I've done 2 parochial roads since I'm MP, and this from the Christmas allocation. The Ragshill Road in Guysill and Freetown Road in Mount Industry. And Madam Speaker, not a patching program, but resurfacing the entire roadway. Now, Madam Speaker, I am wondering which of the 50 or so roads I should do for this Christmas. Madam Speaker, when constituents are angry with their representative, it is usually over the state of the roads. Bad roads are the biggest sources of headaches for many MPs. And today, I am making the bold call to the Honourable Dr. Nigel Clark, Minister of Finance, to increase the allocation for parochial roads. Enable our councillors to take on even one road each year. Community roads are the Wi-Fi to connect people. Dr. Clark, it is a big request, but we believe in you. We believe that as this economy recovers stronger, the funds and the funds to go on these roads will be considered a priority. I wish Minister Bartlett was here because he allocated funds.
Member, I'm going to ask, because it's happening often, I'm going to ask us not to call the ministers by their names, but by their constituency.
By their constituency. Please, thank you, Madam Speaker. Please. Madam Speaker, the baby pool, I know that he would want me to report on the progress at the baby pool. He has allocated funding for the baby pool, but I'll say to the minister that for the baby pool, we now need funds to go on the road in order to drive to the baby pool. Madam Speaker, you need to go to baby pool? Yes. Madam Speaker, the tasks are many, but especially through education, it will be one of our ways out of poverty. Madam Speaker, this year, over 50 tertiary students were the recipients of over $3 million in tuition grant. Book vouchers were in high demand. We spent over $3.5 million on book vouchers. Funds have also been put aside to assist vulnerable families with CAPE and CSEC fees. Additionally, backpacks, books and other supplies were given. Madam Speaker, the request for educational grants is ballooning, and this is good news as more constituents are becoming motivated to pursue education and skills training. The challenge for us is to find ways to assist them to better themselves, and this would definitely be one of the benefits of an increased CDF. Madam Speaker, the digitization of schools, re-internet connectivity cannot come soon enough, as most of northeastern St. Catherine struggle with poor internet connectivity. Geisel High School pays over $100,000 per month to their service provider. In addition, I'm appealing to Digicel or Flow to install cell towers that can enable communities like Williamsfield, Gube, Hamwalk to have cell phone service. Especially Gube. Thanks to the USF for installing the first community Wi-Fi access point in Facey. Madam Speaker, young people bursting with ambition are forced to leave, and schools find it difficult to contact parents even in case of emergency. I thank the Ministry of Labour for the efforts they have made to contact the recipients of the farm work card. Because of the poor cell phone reception, persons often miss these important calls, and they have reached out to me to make contact with these individuals. And many of my constituents, Member Montague, they have to sometimes catch up the phone by the window where there might be a weak signal. Madam Speaker, Grateful Hill Primary, and I know this is something they want the minister to hear, Grateful Hill Primary is doing well and is on the books to receive a new school building because the current plant continues to deteriorate. I am appealing for construction to begin soonest. Geisel High saw, again, Minister wanted to listen to this, Geisel High School saw heightened interest in the sixth form pathways program. But Minister, they are advocating for additional classrooms. And they have told me to tell you, Minister, that before they go back home, they would love to have a picture with the Minister of Education. Madam Speaker, of national concern,
they love they love your minister. The children from Heartland and Winter Castle, that's what the guys, they love you.
You see how excited my colleagues are when they hear good things? Madam Speaker, of national concern is the problem of indiscipline in schools. And indiscipline that has administrators at their wits' end. And no teacher should be dealing with troubling behavioral problem. Madam Speaker, outside of these extreme scenarios, we are compelled to inspire our students to a level of consciousness that will be even more effective than many punitive actions or draconian rules. The methods used by our parents will not always work. We are dealing with children who are of a different orientation, whose upbringing and way of thinking may be unlike ours. The way to enable them to achieve their best outcome, Madam Speaker, is to take psychology seriously. Conversation, reason, counseling, therapy must be a part of the suite of the methods used. Madam Speaker, this is what will inspire our youths to consider, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I want to be associated with? And how does the world see me? This awareness of self, this consciousness, this cherished identity will see more confident and resilient children. Madam Speaker, there's much conversation about apathy, youth apathy. Madam Speaker, this government will continue to include young people as we develop our constituency and as we grow. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, youths have to become sold on relevance. How does governance align? My chair.
Madam Speaker.
2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the standing orders be suspended to enable the member to continue her speech to its conclusion.
Members, the question before the House is that the standing orders be amended to allow the Speaker to complete her presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Youths have to become sold on relevance. How does the governance issues align with their goals? The politics is relevant when it connects the things that are of interest to youths. And Prime Minister is onto something powerful with initiatives such as coding and digitization, climate change, green technology, alternative energy, and enterprise in creating technology. These form the big conversation on the international stage, and youths can coalesce around these issues. All we need to do more, Prime Minister, is to tether, is to hotspot these big ideas and initiatives with youth, so wherever they are, they can be connected and included. Inclusivity is the language of the future. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I say to the opposition that time come to associate themselves with the vision of Prime Minister Andrew Holness. We on this side have always taken governance and representation as seriously. Madam Speaker, time come for you to do some work and stop creating mischief all over the country. Time come and gone. Time come to ensure that Jamaica play your part in ensuring that Jamaica will continue to recover stronger. Just look at the world gas and food crisis. Big nations in shambles and you over here bawling about time come. Huh? Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
We don't have to beg for it. We don't have to beg for it. It's given to us.
Madam Speaker.
Time is here. Time is
every
here.
time, we're talking about time, every time when you are to join with the government is a two-faced thing. You show one face, you agree, you come in the house and you do something else. Madam Speaker, a lot of the problems, Madam Speaker.
Don't say a word, you know it's true. You know it's true. You know it's true.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, stop the nice bits.
Huh? Madam Speaker, even though Jamaicans are demanding more from us as a government, which is their right, and correct, which is our duty to listen, when it comes to the opposition, you and your history of non-performance.
Absolutely.
And actually today displaying the same behaviors, Jamaicans are saying, block and delete. Listen. You run your mouth, we run the country. My constituents, it is an honor to represent you, and I thank you for supporting me, and I will continue to be your chief activist. Madam Speaker, in closing, Madam Speaker, in closing, a young woman reached out to me recently. She has 3 children and is enrolled in college and needed a laptop. She didn't ask me for a laptop. She asked for chicken and she asked for feed so that she could purchase the laptop.
Transformational.
She said, I am determined to do this for myself and my children. That's what I'm talking about, Madam Speaker. Building lives, moving people from dependence to independence. Madam Speaker, to that person in my constituency who may be ashamed of where they are now, I say to them, reach out. There is no stopwatch on what you can achieve. It is never too late. Everybody's journey is different. Run your own race and create your own destiny. I am here to assist, to make dreams come true. May God bless the great constituency of Northeastern St. Catherine. May God bless this government. May God bless Jamaica, land we love.
Madam Speaker, that was a very spirited presentation from Member of Parliament, Corencia Morrison.
Corencia, keep him over there.
Well, Northeast St. Catherine, well represented.
Corencia.
And so, Madam Speaker, we will now have the presentation by Member of Parliament, George Anthony Hilton, St. Andrew Western.
Members, thank the Member of Parliament for Northeast St. Catherine, and I now invite the Member of Parliament from St. Andrew Western to make his presentation.
Madam Speaker, I needed to be reminded that we were in the state of the constituency debate because that's what I'm prepared for today. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
No,
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I begin this presentation by acknowledging the goodness of God and by thanking you, Madam Speaker, for your continued leadership of this honourable House. My commendation also, Madam Speaker, to the Clerk of the House and her diligent staff for their support to me and to the members.
Just a moment. Members, please. The member from St. Andrew Western is on his feet, and I'm going to ask you to allow him to be heard. Please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I acknowledge my family, Madam Speaker, who have remained steadfast over these many years in their support for my endeavours. I also acknowledge the presence of representatives from the DNG Foundation and the principal of Seaview Primary School, who are here today as an expression of the partnership with the people of Western St. Andrew and the Seaview Gardens community.
Wonderful.
To members of the leadership of Western St. Andrew, all of whom are here today, many of whom are here today, who have never left my side, I say thanks to you, Madam Speaker. I remind them, Madam Speaker, as I have from time to time, that they are the wind beneath my wings, and they are the ones that lift me up so I can stand on mountains. Madam Speaker, I particularly want to thank the residents of Western St. Andrew, many of whom are watching the live broadcast and who have supported me for the past 15 years and have been patient and understanding of the many inconveniences they have suffered because of the state of the physical infrastructure and the inadequacies of the social services in many of their communities. Madam Speaker, my presentation today will speak to partnership for progress, governance and the state bureaucracy, the environment and infrastructure, and will situate these in the context of the geographic and socio-economic realities of Western St. Andrew. I start on the Partnership for Progress. Madam Speaker, a few days ago, the D&G Foundation and the Seaview Primary School, represented here today by an officer of the foundation and a principal, respectively, signed an agreement aimed at rescuing the children who would have been left behind due to the learning loss arising from the COVID-19 lockdown. This agreement, Madam Speaker, will provide approximately $8 million in information technology hardware and software, supported by technical assistance. The children will access specially designed and appropriately delivered literacy materials in reading, comprehension, and mathematics. Over the next 3 years, Madam Speaker, the engagement will enable all grade-level students to not only close the learning gap, but to be on a path to excellence. Madam Speaker, education is foundational and is the greatest gift that one can give to anyone. This program is designed to promote literacy and assess skills, interests, learning styles, and sensory awareness abilities, thereby designing individual learning tools for each student. Finally, it will focus on critical thinking as a core component of the grades 4 to 6. This partnership, Madam Speaker, is a combination of the concerns of our teachers and the commitment of corporate Jamaica, with the support of the other stakeholders, the parents, government, and Member of Parliament, to unlock Jamaica's potential through collaborative action. I'm trying to get this thing working. Okay. That represents the signing, Madam Speaker. I use this opportunity to again thank the principal and her staff on a well-thought-out initiative and the D&G Foundation for providing adequate funding for this program. Madam Speaker, this is truly a time-critical intervention by the Seaview Primary School and the D&G Foundation for the students of Seaview Gardens. Madam Speaker, I'm also pleased that the Foundation has signaled its intention to provide critical support to the Riverton Basic School, where the principal and his team have been quietly turning out students who have graduated at or near the top of their class at the primary and high school levels, which they subsequently attend, as well as, Madam Speaker, from universities locally and abroad to which they have matriculated. The support of D&G Foundation hereto will go a long way to ensuring that the learning gap envisioned during COVID-19 does not become a death sentence for the young people of Riverton. Madam Speaker, I wish to highlight the fact that corporate Jamaica's support for Western St. Andrew is not new, but it is growing. The J. Ray and Neville Foundation has consistently supported the young people of the constituency, and each year has provided numerous scholarships to assist with secondary level education, as well as to enable those who excelled at the secondary level to advance to tertiary institutions. This year alone, Madam Speaker, J. Ray and Nephew Foundation has expended some $29 million in support of education, $6.2 million of which has gone directly to students in Western St. Andrew. Madam Speaker, this is a commendable effort. IGL2, Madam Speaker, has consistently provided scholarships in medicine to students annually, with special consideration for the students from Western St. Andrew, in which it is located. And to date, there has not been a shortage of quality applicants. Nestle Jamaica has been a consistent contributor to the welfare needs of the constituency, particularly during times of disasters such as flood and fire, but particularly so during the 2-year period of the pandemic, with a special emphasis on welfare and education of the children and youths in the constituency. Mention must also be made, Madam Speaker, of the work carried out by an international organization named the Good Samaritan, which has assisted some 70 students from the Riverton community for the past 5 years with tablets, laptops, books, uniforms, care packages, and tuition fees. Similarly, Madam Speaker, the international organization Joseph Assignment has partnered with the Member of Parliament and the Riverton community to build a state-of-the-art multi-purpose centre for the youths and elderly, as well as a regulation football and netball court. Separate Limited, too, has provided scholarships and other forms of support, which treats primarily to the schools, but has always been responsive to the calls of the Member of Parliament for welfare assistance. The list, Madam Speaker, is not complete, as over the years, the demand for social support would have overwhelmed the capacity of the Member of Parliament, acting on his own, even with the meagre but vital resources of the CDF, had it not been for the tangible local and international partnerships that have been built up over the years. On behalf of my constituents, I say thank you. Perhaps most importantly, Madam Speaker, I must recognize and express deep appreciation for the private investors who are undertaking the path-breaking development of the Seaview Eco-Industrial and Logistics Park. Madam Speaker, the investment will change the physical, economic, and social and environmental landscape of the communities of Seaview Gardens and Riverton. But its impact will be felt across the length and breadth of Western St. Andrew, the southern areas of St. Andrew, and indeed all of Jamaica. Madam Speaker, the planned location of the logistics park to adjoin the port of Kingston and extending to parts of Riverton will be among Jamaica's first green special economic zones, with significant benefits in improved drainage, water and air quality, as well as jobs for hundreds of tech-savvy young people from surrounding areas in Kingston and St. Andrew, and indeed throughout Jamaica. That is why, Madam Speaker, we in Western St. Andrew are so excited about the timely intervention in education being made by our local and international partners mentioned earlier. We are preparing our students in Western St. Andrew for a different future. Madam Speaker, more will be said publicly by the investors on this truly game-changing and exciting logistics park development, which is part of the logistics sub-initiative, first announced by this side when we formed the government, and recently reaffirmed by the Leader of Opposition. I take this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to congratulate the current administration for its full embrace of the Logistic Hub initiative, as evidenced by the development of modern warehouse facilities on the Port of Kingston and other recent announcements. I acknowledge, Madam Speaker, the support given to the Seaview Eco-Industrial and Logistic Park project so far, and look forward to the continuing collaboration in fixing some of the critical drainage problems in the area affecting the project. Madam Speaker, these partnerships with both local and international organizations, including with diaspora members, represents the commitment of the Member of Parliament and our partners to do what we can to enhance the development of the constituency and to advance the socio-economic status of its residents. We will continue to do what we can, but there are some things that are and should remain the responsibility of the government, and today I will highlight a few of those. Let me begin with drains, Madam Speaker. It is a measure of the seriousness of this issue, Madam Speaker, that I am again prioritizing it above other important issues affecting the lives of the people of Western St. Andrew. The constituency has numerous main drains, as shown from the diagram, and a number of smaller gullies. All are important as their existence mean they are intended to serve a purpose of taking water out of the communities where people live, work, and do business to some endpoint. In the case of Western St. Andrew, Madam Speaker, the natural endpoint is the Hunts Bay, which is supported by wetlands and mangroves to form a very sensitive ecosystem. My emphasis today is again on the Sandy Gully, and in particular, the lower reaches of the gully below the Spanish Town Road Bridge in the vicinity of Seaview Gardens and Riverton Meadows. The gully is now a virtual forest, as evidenced by the picture on the screen, as silt and debris have provided fertile ground for shrubs to become trees, with roots which have burrowed their way into what used to be concrete base and into the sidewall of the gully. Madam Speaker, currently, only small amounts of flood water can pass through the mountains of debris which has accumulated in the southern portion of the Sandy Gully. The consistent rise in the water level whenever it rains represents a clear and present danger to the communities of Riverton Meadows and Seaview Gardens. The gully floor and wall have been breached, and we are only a hurricane or a storm away from what I can only describe as a human catastrophe. The signs are clear, Madam Speaker, for those who choose to see or to listen to the concerns of the residents whose voices are merely echoing here today. The Minister of Finance is fully aware of my concerns, as are other members of the government, on whom I'm again calling to act to save lives and property. We must avoid this impending catastrophe by doing what the Minister of Finance promised some 3 years ago. We must clean the Sandy Gully. Death knows no political color. death knows no social standing. Madam Speaker, I next turn to rivers and drains. In addition to the network of gullies and drains, Madam Speaker, Western St. Andrew has a unique status in the corporate area of having 3 rivers flowing through it. Not 1, not 2, 3 rivers flowing through it. We have the Rio Cobra River, which enters the constituency from St. Catherine and flows into Riverton. We also have the Freshwater River, which flows from Red Hills through the Caymanas Estate to Ferry and then to Riverton. Finally, we have the Duhaney River, which flows from Upper St. Andrew through to New Haven and to Riverton, where all 3 rivers converge just below 6 miles, and then move on to Seaview and ultimately into the sea at Hunts Bay. Madam Speaker, I use the word flow, but these rivers hardly flow. They trickle until they reach the 6 miles area where they merge. And since the path forward has been blocked by a tangle of debris and overgrown shrubbery, there is no outlet for the water. The result, Madam Speaker, is a backflowing of the water into the residential area of New Haven. Madam Speaker, the rivers have not been dredged and desilted since the beginning of my first term as a Member of Parliament for Western St. Andrew, some 15 years ago. Following every major rainfall, the NAA and more recently the KSAMC sends a tractor to remove some of the debris, and since it is usually after the rain has stopped, the water level in the river eventually subsides. But several of the homes and streets in the New Haven area are left underwater for weeks and even months. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, my heart bled recently when the mother of a 5-year-old who was shot and killed while asleep in her bed said to me, and I quote, "MP, if I did not raise the bed out of the water in the room, my daughter may still be alive today." Madam Speaker, there are some in and out of this honourable House who believe that the simple answer is for them to move or to be removed. But I ask the question, remove to where? The fact is, Madam Speaker, many of these persons are principally no-wage or low-wage earners who cannot afford to buy or rent a house at today's prices. This has been their home for 2 and 3 generations. My solution is for the river to be desilted, trained, and maintained. If we move the people who are affected now, and the silt keeps rising, the water will simply spread further into the community and beyond. How much of our land space are we willing to give up to water? I ask, Madam Speaker, how much of our land space are we willing to give up to water? We will then have to move the people and businesses along parts of Spanish Town Road, closest to 6 miles. And soon, the people of Riverton Meadows and Seaview Gardens, and then the port of Kingston itself, as the harbour channel is desilted much too frequently for the port to remain economically viable. That's the dimension of the problem we face when we say simply remove those who are directed there rather than doing the corrective things that can sustain the situation. Because, Madam Speaker, That is the ultimate endpoint of these rivers and the loads of garbage, waste, and silt they carry. You have to listen to the entire presentation, not some.
Current government.
Because, Madam Speaker,
Own everything.
that is the ultimate endpoint of these rivers and the loads of garbage, waste, and silt that they carry on their journey. I call on the government, Madam Speaker, to provide the necessary resources now to clear these rivers so that our communities are protected and the Port of Kingston remains competitive and attractive for investments. The silting of the rivers is not only an environmental risk, but also a risk, Madam Speaker, a health risk, Madam Speaker. And to respond to a detractor, Madam Speaker, let me simply say, the CDF cannot, nor was it designed to address this issue.
You mean Desmond or Juliet? Which other? Detractors.
Madam Speaker, today I will speak to some of the issues surrounding the recent announcement of the decommissioning / closure of the Riverton dump. I've used the word dump intentionally, Madam Speaker, because that is what we have at Riverton and we've had for 60 years or more. Madam Speaker, many of the residents of Riverton were forced out of their homes in what was then called Bacawal for political reasons and forced to seek refuge at a place where no one would come to find them. They have made the dump their home and have converted it into their source of earning and a means of survival for many. But for those who care to understand the dynamics at the largest dump site in the island, it is readily recognized that a majority of those actually working on the dump are from far away communities in the east and west of the island, from St. Catherine to St. Thomas and beyond. An even larger number of persons from within and outside of Riverton benefit directly from the activities on the dump. Many derive an income from the dump without even putting a foot on the dump or anywhere in Riverton. For many Jamaicans, Madam Speaker, it is simply a place, shut your mouth. It is simply a place where their garbage is disposed of, but to which they will never go. For many, Madam Speaker, it remains a deeply misunderstood community. Madam Speaker, the real people of Riverton are creative and resilient. They were among the first in Jamaica to engage in the circular economy and sustain environmental practices of reuse, restore, and recycle waste material, including the development of the scrap metal industry. They have educated their children, producing doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, and other professionals. You can't put word in mind. Like everywhere else in Jamaica, and indeed in the world, some of the residents are delinquent.
Listen what I'm saying. What needs to be done?
Like everywhere else in Jamaica, and indeed in the world, some of the residents are delinquent, but they are also creative and ambitious. For many, crime was not their first choice. It is believed to be their only option. Unfortunately, the acts of a few have come to define the entire population of Riverton in the minds of some. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I'm anxious to see the development of a modern landfill and for the waste to be properly managed for productive purposes. But I want to see it done in Riverton, with the people of Riverton. No other group of persons anywhere in Jamaica knows waste and the value of waste better than the people of Riverton. No other people. It is said, Madam, that one man's waste is another man's treasure. Well, we will see. It is said that one man's waste is another man's treasure. For many, it is the only work they have known, and the objective now should be to close the existing dump site for sound environmental reasons. Listen. For many, it is the only work they have known. And the objective now should be to close the existing dump site for sound environmental reasons. Build a proper landfill on the remainder of the more than 100 acres of land already dedicated to waste disposal and the management of waste. And to develop a waste energy industry that we have long argued for. I have long argued for. Madam Speaker, you are a masked man. Stay as a masked man. Madam Speaker, the vast majority of the people of Riverton, are welcoming of the planned upgrading of the dump and are willing to improve their knowledge and skills base relating to the new technology, practices and processes to enable their continued participation in the recycling, reuse and restoration of waste. Okay. Madam Speaker, it cannot be that it was the people of Riverton who risked their lives when it was a dump, but will be sidelined when it is upgraded to a proper sanitary landfill. The people of Riverton must be beneficiaries of any future plan for Riverton and about Riverton and the waste industry. Simply, we must free our minds. We must free our minds of the limitation we place on others. Social and economic justice demands nothing less. Madam Speaker, I will continue to remind this government that it is the people who we represent and serve. Therefore, every decision and every action must answer the question, how will the people benefit? Many doctors, lawyers and professionals already come from Riverton, and more will come. One of the doctors may have to save your life or that of a relative of yours in time to come.
Madam Speaker.
Same thing you gave credential. Same thing you give credit. First thing you gave. Same thing.
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the member the standing order be suspended to allow the member sufficient time to complete his presentation.
Divide.
Members, the question is that the standing orders be suspended to allow the member sufficient time to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those against?
I am against. I'm calling for a divide.
Madam Speaker, I thank my honourable colleagues and I thank you for your... I said my honourable colleagues. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Thank you. My final comment today, Madam Speaker, is about the state bureaucracy and governance. Western St. Andrew is unique in that it is the only constituency in the corporate area comprised of an agricultural, commercial, industrial, and residential communities within its redefined boundaries. The needs, therefore, Madam Speaker, are very diverse. So the state, in responding, must recognize the different needs of the diverse constituencies and communities. Cypress Hall, Gutsman, Waddle, Mary Gully, Happy Grove, Windsor, you're coming Windsor, right? Right. Happy Grove are the new agricultural areas of Western St. Andrew, where these communities were once a part of West Rural St. Andrew. The primary needs of the residents from the government are water and roads. Their requests to the Member of Parliament are for water tanks, fertilizers, seeds, chickens, goats, and agricultural tools, and pigs. The Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, must be equipped to respond to these needs, regardless of the age of the farmers or the size of the lots. In this time of food shortage, Madam Speaker, created by COVID and the disruption of the food supply chain, the government should be reaching out to every farmer to facilitate them in producing. Instead, we seem to be more preoccupied with whether or not the farmer is registered. Madam Speaker, the approach now must be to grow while we wait, and not register and wait. Madam Speaker, Western St. Andrew has a number of housing schemes, many of which were built in the 1950s and early 1960s. The road, drains, water and sewer infrastructure are over 60 years old. The population has tripled, and the usage of these infrastructure has increased exponentially. They are bursting literally at the seams. Madam Speaker, for many of our residents, the needs are not just for infrastructure, but for shelter, for social facilities, for security and safety, for food, for health care, for access to opportunities, and for inclusion. But the state bureaucracy has failed them. It takes forever for a contract to be awarded, by which time the project cost has escalated and communities end up getting only a fraction of what they were told they would get. It breeds suspicion. It takes forever for a funeral grant to be disbursed, and while the bereaved family waits, the cost increases. It takes forever for a person to get registered and pass on the PATH program, and while the applicants wait, children cannot go to school. It appears that the system has almost come to a halt because of layer upon layer of bureaucracy, with the same number of staff seeking to serve a growing population who needs the support of the government. Not because they are lazy or lacking in ambition, Madam Speaker, but because many of them have been shortchanged for most of their lives. Clearly, Madam Speaker, the current philosophy and structure of the bureaucracy has made it inefficient and ineffective at meeting the needs of our people in 2022. There is therefore an urgent need, Madam Speaker, for our bureaucracy to be reimagined and restructured to allow the people who work in the system to be responsive in an efficient, timely, and transparent manner. Good governance must be balanced, Madam Speaker, ensuring compliance with laws and regulations while responding to the needs of the citizens in a manner that creates a sense of hope, respect, and dignity. Madam Speaker, the CDF was established in part out of this realization. because of the recognition of the failure of the bureaucracy in both reaching out to citizens and to be responsive to their urgent needs. Its primary objective, Madam Speaker, is to enable the elected representatives to respond to some of the urgent needs and more persons, some of the urgent needs of their constituents. Since its establishment some 15 years ago, Madam Speaker, the needs have increased and more persons are forced to rely on the Member of Parliament and his staff to assist in various ways and to avoid a Byzantine and failing bureaucracy. The greatest demand on my CDF, Madam Speaker, is for housing assistance because the existing housing stock is old and the number of persons living in these homes has increased due to the high cost of affordable housing. The demand for assistance with school fees and books have doubled over the last 2 years. More and more persons are requesting assistance with prescriptions for funerals and care packages because of the socioeconomic makeup of the constituency and growing unemployment among the youth population. It is therefore illogical for the same amount of funds in the same proportion to be provided to Western St. Andrew as is provided to a constituency with drastically different demographic and socio-economic makeup. I am therefore supporting the call already made by previous speakers in this debate for an increase in the CDF to restore it to its value, to restore it to its value to at least when it was first introduced. I'm also, Madam Speaker, joining the call by the member from Northwest Manchester for a differentiation in the allocation of these resources. One size cannot fit all. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, my presentation today was not intended to cover all the needs of the people of Western St. Andrew. Instead, it is intended to help the government to prioritize a portion of its resources around the needs of the people I represent. They have been very patient and understanding, even as they accept that the government cannot and should not do everything. We will explore every possible partnerships to find appropriate solutions to our challenges. The partnerships we have already forged are not only with the private sector, but also with the NGOs and the CBOs within and outside the constituency. I will continue, Madam Speaker, in my search for solutions to the benefit of all the people of Western St. Andrew. But ultimately, it is the responsibility of a caring government to respond to many of these urgent challenges with appropriate and timely solutions. Madam Speaker, I look forward to an improved partnership with the government in the immediate period ahead. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank two members of Parliament for their presentations today, and I now ask that the debate be suspended.
The question before the House is that the debate be suspended until next week. Those in favour? Those against? Or until tomorrow, Wednesday the 5th of October. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I now ask for the recommittal of items from announcements through to presentation of bills.
Members, the question before the House is that recommit the items on the agenda, starting with the heading announcements. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: Ministry Papers numbers 77 to 80 of 2022, entitled Cabinet Agenda Issues, dated July 11, 18, and 25, and August 29, 2022, and the Auditor General's Department Special Audit Report on the Development Bank of Jamaica Loan Awards.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions. Bills brought from the Senate. Sorry, Madam Clerk.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate. To the Honorable House of Representatives, I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the 30th day of September 2022, the Honorable Senate agreed to the amendment of the House of Representatives to a bill entitled An Act to Repeal and Replace the Firearms Act to provide more particularly for the prohibition, restriction, or regulation as may be appropriate of firearms and ammunitions and for connected matters. Signed, Thomas Tavares Finson, OJCD, KC, JP, President of the Senate.
Papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to sittings of the House, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Leprosy Repeal Act 2022.
A bill entitled the Leprosy Repeal Act 2022, read a first time.
Madam Speaker, okay. Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take second reading of the bill and to take it through all its concluding stages.
It's going. Minister, you're taking it through all its stages today? No, all right, very well. Second reading, so you're asking for just...
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Notice of second reading of the bill. Madam Clerk? No? Notice?
Madam Speaker, in the nick of time.
That is what you call in the real nick of time.
Real nick of time. See, our Minister of Finance is on point.
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, in an effort, Yes, no.
Minister, it's on the customs, the report of the Joint Select Committee on the customs.
Are we, Madam Speaker, on the motion for adoption of the report on the bill shortly entitled the Customs Act?
That is what you wish for us to do?
Yes. Okay. So I just want to make my contribution.
That's right.
So, Madam Speaker, in an effort to modernize the customs practices and procedures and to make 1941 Act, which has had numerous amendments to make that less cumbersome and more user-friendly, a decision was taken to completely repeal and replace the Customs Act of 1941. This modernization is expected to bring benefits for the trading community and the Jamaica Customs Agency by improving customs clearance and revenue collection processes, simplifying procedures for businesses, enhancing the custom authorities' ability to protect Jamaica's borders, and providing a more efficient service delivery to the public. Madam Speaker, as you and other members of this Honourable House may recall, on January 12, 2020, I moved for a special select committee comprised of some members of this House to sit jointly with a similar committee appointed by the Senate to consider and report on the bill entitled An Act to Repeal and Replace the Customs Act and to Provide for Connected Matters. A similar motion was made in the Senate on the 15th of January 2020. On the 13th of April 2021, the Honourable Edmund Bartlett, Leader of the House, having obtained suspension of the standing orders, moved that the committee be allowed to hold virtual meetings, whether wholly virtual or partly virtual and partly physical, utilizing available information and communication technologies. Madam Speaker, the Customs Bill consists of 281 clauses and 4 schedules covering 852 pages. Let me say it again. 852 pages. Given the magnitude, importance, and the general public interest of the bill, its effect on the public, on the trading community, on the Customs Agency, I considered it best to move for the establishment of the Joint Select Committee in order to fully ventilate all aspects of the bill, as well as to give all Jamaicans the opportunity to participate through providing feedback. Madam Speaker, the committee held 14 meetings to fully examine the bill and received written submissions from the following groups and individuals: Jamaica Lands, Airports Authority of Jamaica, the Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarding Association of Jamaica, Chancellor Hall Committee, the Shipping Association of Jamaica, the Montego Bay Airport Authority Limited, PAC Kingston, which operates the airport in Kingston, the Revenue Appeals Division of the Ministry of Finance, Tonylicious Fashions, and a number of suggestions from individuals who wrote by email to the committee: Ms. Kadian Mundell, Mr. Cy Moore, Dr. Keisha Barwise, Ms. Denise Clark, Mr. Mike Jamie, Ms. Tiana Powell, Jay Hemini, Tedisha Bloomfield, Neela Ebanks, Gian Thomas. The committee also heard oral presentations from various persons, including the Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association, the Shipping Association, PAC Kingston, Jamaica Lands, the Chancellor Hall Committee of the University of the West Indies, and the Revenue Appeals Division. Technical assistance was received from the Ministry of Finance, the Customs Agency, the Office of Parliamentary Counsel, the Attorney General's Chambers, and the Legal Reform Department. Madam Speaker, the report details the recommendations of the committee, which have been incorporated in a list of amendments to the bill, which you are now being asked to approve. I would like, Madam Speaker, just to highlight some of the important recommendations which were made during the deliberations of the JSC. A key one, Madam Speaker, is a recommendation that the definition of goods be amended to include any form of currency. This seeks to clarify that the customs framework applies to the import and export of large sums of cash by various financial institutions. Tax Administration Jamaica and the Tax Policy Division of the Ministry of Finance were not opposed to the recommendation. Madam Speaker, it was proposed that clear language be inserted at clause 169 of the bill to impose an obligation on the Postmaster General to ensure that before the arrival of postal articles in Jamaica or before the departure of postal articles from Jamaica, a report should be provided to the Commissioner of Customs detailing the estimated time of arrival or departure, the customs control area where postal articles will arrive or depart from Jamaica, and any other information prescribed by the rules. The required information should be provided to the Commissioner within the time frame specified by the rules. It was noted during the deliberations of the JSC that there are administrative arrangements in place between the Customs Agency and the Post and Telecommunications Department by which the Post and Telecommunications Department facilitates the Customs Agency in obtaining this advance arrival and departure information electronically. Madam Speaker, during the deliberations, the JSC recognized that Clause 186, which treats with the immediate suspension of an authorization by the Commissioner, did not reflect the period within which the Commissioner should notify the affected person of the suspension. It was recommended that subclause 3 be amended to require the Commissioner to provide the notice promptly, but in any event not later than 7 days after the suspension. This seeks to ensure that the citizens' rights are preserved, even in the exceptional circumstances that may give rise to an immediate suspension. Madam Speaker, the JSC was keen to preserve transparency when goods are sold by customs and the continued participation of the public. Having considered the matter, the JSC recommended that the reference to private treaty in Clause 121 of the bill be removed. This makes it clear, Madam Speaker, that all goods to be sold by customs will be sold by public auction. During the deliberations of the JSC, concerns were raised about the JCA's powers of search and seizure in light of recent case law concerning legal professional privilege. Madam Speaker, the JSC agreed that Clause 218 be amended to provide that documents to which legal professional privileges apply are protected from search and seizure. Madam Speaker, Clause 262 stipulated that there should be a publication of rules and regulations before they are brought into operation. During the deliberations of the JSC, it was noted that this provision could have unintended consequences. Members agreed that certain events and decisions should not be subject to full-scale public consultation, while acknowledging the need for balance and transparency. The JSC recommended that the circumstances under which public consultation should not be allowed should be listed in the provision. The rules and regulations that are recommended for exemption from the public consultation requirement include those relating to rates of duty or rates of tariff, restrictions or prohibitions on the importation of goods, the internal administration of the Customs Agency, the delegation of any functions under the legislation, and amendments that are minor in nature. Madam Speaker, the Joint Select Committee recommended that the bill be amended to make it clear that the Commissioner may only require an English translation of documents submitted to the Customs Agency under circumstances prescribed in the rules. This will enable the Customs Agency to deal in subsidiary legislation the instances in which an English translation will be required, with a view to ensuring that translations are only required where necessary for customs operations. This is generally consistent with the international best practice recommended in the revised Kyoto Convention. Madam Speaker, the Joint Select Committee carefully considered the concerns raised by stakeholders from the Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association and the Shipping Association relating to the appointment of agents. The Joint Select Committee recommended substantial changes to Clause 270 of the bill, including recommending that regulations under this provision identify the categories of agents, specify the rights and responsibilities of each category of agent, and identify the types of customs transactions that each category of agent may carry out on behalf of a principal. Additionally, the committee recommended that the provision be amended where an agent discloses that he is acting as an agent, the agent would not be held liable for the duties, taxes, expenses, or penalties arising from the transaction. Madam Speaker and members, you may recall that the harmonized commodity description and coding system was the subject of an ongoing regional review by CARICOM for a few years. The revised Common External Tariff of CARICOM, based on the 2022 edition of the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, was adopted by the Council for Trade and Economic Development on November 24, 2021. You may also recall that this revised Common External Tariff became law in Jamaica through the Customs Tariff Revision Amendment 2022, which was approved by this House and took effect on the 1st of June 2022. Consequently, it was necessary to amend the first schedule of the bill to insert this revised Common External Tariff. The committee took note and agreed with the recommendation of the representatives of the Revenue Appeals Division that there was a need to amend the bill to treat with Decision 6.1 of the World Trade Organization Technical Committee on Valuation. In Decision 6.1, the WTO recognized that it was necessary to empower customs administrations to set aside previously declared values of a declarant if there is reason to doubt the truth or accuracy of the particulars or documents produced in support of a goods declaration. The committee accordingly recommended that the valuation schedule be amended to confer this power on the Commissioner of Customs. Madam Speaker, subsequent to the deliberations of the Joint Select Committee, there are important consequential amendments which I'd like to bring to this Honourable House's attention and move for further amendment when we do the clause-by-clause review of the bill. These consequential amendments will include amendments to other legislation, such as the General Consumption Tax Act, the Stamp Duty Act, which contain references to specific provisions in the Customs Act of 1941. Thus, it would be necessary to update these statutes to refer to the corresponding equivalent provisions now contained in this new bill, or to make deletions as appropriate. Madam Speaker, before I ask for the approval of this report, including the amendments, I must extend a huge thank you to all members of the committee, various stakeholder groups and individuals who gave substantial feedback, as well as the support from the staff of, Madam Speaker, may I invite the House? This was a bill 852 pages in length. 852 pages. And I just want us to thank the teams from the House of Parliament, from the Customs Agency, from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, from the Chief Parliamentary Council, and from the Attorney General's chambers. Please, Madam Speaker, give them the applause that is due for their dedication to the review of the bill and production of this report. And, Madam Speaker, I'd like to single out for some recognition the ranking member of the opposition on the committee, a member from my neighbour, from West St. Andrew, who played a critical role on the committee and who provided me in my capacity as chairman with sterling support. And we had topics that we had to discuss, we had debate, but it was always conducted in an open, civic and transparent skill. And there's no way we could get through 900 pages without that. And I want to publicly acknowledge it, member. Thank you very much. I now ask for the approval of the report of the Joint Select Committee to consider and report on the bill shortly entitled the Customs Act of 2020.
Members, the question before the House, and even as the member rises to speak, I endorse what the minister said about him, and like his successor who sits in the chair I have always found the member to be that type of person in all his dealings with the Parliament, and I thank him always and recognize him.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, arise just to say to this Honourable House that seldom we, as legislators, we have the opportunity to really to transform a subject area and an institution as vital and as critical as this. In turn, I want to commend the Minister for his stewardship and his leadership of the committee, because in all of my 20-odd years in this House, it is I must say, it is one of the pieces of legislation that I've worked on that has given me a level of satisfaction, because the level of consultation was as I would wish many other pieces of legislation were subjected to. And so I am satisfied that the discerning and concerning stakeholders had an opportunity to participate and to give of their views on the proposed amendments. Madam Speaker, I'd want to join with the Minister to say that it's not only the size of the legislation, but the importance of the subject matter that it addresses. And I agree with him that rather than just tabling this document, this report, and sort of let it sit, that there is an opportunity to begin to engage the Jamaican people, particularly the business sector, but not exclusively the business sector, because this will touch every Jamaican, whether you import or export, or simply just buy products that are imported into this country. The effects are truly far-reaching, and therefore it is correct and it is right that the Minister begins to lead that awareness and that education program that must attend this piece of legislation, because there are aspects of it that person, and quite frankly, some of the changes are sufficiently new and different, and I would say perhaps even revolutionary, that the education must begin now. Madam Speaker, this is a 1941 Act, and I will just simply say that in my estimation, this has implication not only for the day-to-day economic activities, but have macro implication. Macro implication. And so, Minister, it was my duty to work in good faith to get this piece of legislation, which is not properly understood, it's not, the subject matter is not controversial itself, nor some of the choices that we have to make are controversial, certainly in a political way. But its importance we cannot understate. So, Mr. Minister, we have gone a long way. A lot of work has been done. More work remains to be done. But I believe we have broken the back of it, and what remains to be done, I'm not suggesting it is easy, but I believe we're helped in having this piece, having these recommendations and the acceptance of it being put forward. I look forward to it. There are still one or two issues that I believe are going to require some further discussion, particularly on the one provision that allows for settled valuation to be questioned down the road. We need to look at that very, very carefully because of the instability that it can bring in the daily business. But sufficient unto the day. I believe that we would have focused on the real critical issues and addressed them going forward. So I am pleased that we are here at this point. There's more work to be done, and I appreciate that this legislation and these amendments will give support and underpin a vital new industry, the logistics industry, to come. So I'm really appreciative of it and look forward to continue working towards its implementation. Thank you.
Just close. Oh.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's to support Madam Speaker, I'd like to rise also to support the comments made by the Honourable Minister of Finance earlier on this particular bill. A 1947 41 Act of 852 pages. The time, Madam Speaker, has in fact gone in terms of the applicability of the Act. As a member of that committee, I also want to pay commendation to not just the member as spoken by the minister from West St. Andrew, but also the other members of that committee, Ministry of Finance, but in particular Customs. And they were at the meeting at all times, prepared at all times. And even when the points were contentious, they were amicably sorted out, Madam Speaker. I really enjoyed the time on the committee. I learned a lot in the deliberations, and I want to say that it is such an important act that we at this time would have seen it fit and would have deliberated on it to ensure that we can get a volume that is not 852. I remember, Madam Speaker, when I had to go to Customs in my early days to clear my own goods, and I have to leaf through all these volumes, and I often wonder if at some point they will make mistakes and charge me wrong. But I know they were only doing their duties, so I know the duties now can be done in an expeditious way and a correct way for all business persons and all the persons who utilizes the services of Customs, and of course to protect the revenue of Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, thank my colleagues for their contribution to the debate. The member from Western Andrew made a very important point in talking about the macro criticality of this piece of legislation. Jamaica is an open economy where trade is 80% of our economy, of our GDP. Trade in visible and invisible goods. In other words, virtually everything that we do has some interaction with customs and the border. So we have to make the borders as efficient as possible. And it has to, our law from 1941 would make it very, very difficult for the modes of production that are underway today, where you can bring in a screw, operate on a little toy, or the toy comes in separately, the screw comes in separately, you put them together and they go back out again. With the Customs Act of today, that's a very complicated activity to undertake. But that's logistics. And for logistics to be something that is an industry that can thrive in Jamaica, we need this modernization. Absolutely, it's very critical. So, Madam Speaker, it's my intention that we will bring the bill here for debate as soon as possible to get it, it's here, sorry. We will open the debate very shortly and seek to have it passed in this House as quickly as possible so the transformation in our customs landscape can take place. But, Madam Speaker, before you put the resolution, there are many people who played a role, and it's always a danger when you single people out. But I don't think anybody would be upset with me if I single out the legal counsel at the Jamaica Customs Agency, Ms. Hazel Edwards. Let me tell you something. We talk about 900 pages. Ms. Edwards knows every single line in every page of that document. She labored night and day, and more than that, she stewarded us, took us through in the Joint Select Committee very ably. All right, because, and people talk about our public service. Thank you, Ms. Hazel Edwards. And clearly to everyone else, right? But I know no one will be upset for singling you out. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, if you could put the resolution, the report.
Members, the question is that the report be approved. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader?
No. Madam Speaker, this Honourable House, withdrawal. This Honourable House would have seen numerous amendments in the report of the Joint Select Committee, which was earlier approved by this House.
The new bill is not before us.
Wait, are we not going to?
No. The bill is here
Speaker.
but not before us. The report is being approved this afternoon. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Minister and his team, and I just could not resist. He made reference to his neighbor and how well they work together. And it reminds me of a line in a song, me and my neighbor.
What's that? All of us are voting for Jamaica this evening, member.
That's right.
And to be sure, there is evidence in this Parliament that Jamaica is in good hands.
And that's exactly the point I wanted to make, Madam Speaker. Today we voted for Jamaica. Thank you so much. So, Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today, and I therefore ask that the House adjourns until Wednesday, October 5. However, at this point, yes, I think there is another matter to be addressed.
I did inform you earlier this afternoon that, as I informed you earlier this afternoon, I now invite the Member of Parliament from St. Andrew, East Rural, our Deputy Speaker, and the wife of our Prime Minister this evening to make her contribution to our awareness of Breast Cancer Month. And she's very responsible for all the pink you see here this evening in Parliament.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On Friday of this week, we pay attention, I would not even say celebrate, breast cancer awareness. This month is popularly referred to as Pinktober, and you will see many showing their support and lending a voice to a great concern in Jamaica, which is breast cancer. Last month was Prostate Cancer Month, and I know for sure our Jamaican men are becoming more and more aware. Cancer, Madam Speaker, is one of the leading causes of death in Jamaica, both for Jamaican men and Jamaican women. Many because they did not know their diagnosis. And so, when we finally know that something is happening, Madam Speaker, it is already too late. So today, Madam Speaker, I encourage all in the House and Jamaicans generally to get educated. Ensure that you know what breast cancer is all about, and in fact, what prostate cancer is all about. The Jamaica Cancer Society this month speaks to let us stand with our women and our warriors. No one should fight cancer alone. Together, we must fight for tomorrow. Madam Speaker, it was very alarming for me when I did my own mammogram. And in talking to the doctor, she said to me, "Do you know not many people come for screening?" And so I had the opportunity to talk with my doctor and decided it was important to talk to Jamaica. Only 10%, only 10 out of 100% of Jamaican women go for screening at the age of 40 or above as it relates to determining if they are needing to be concerned about breast cancer. Only 10%. And this happens whether they're poor or rich, educated or not. Only a mere 10% of us go. When I spoke to my doctor further, she said, look, for those persons who have a history of breast cancer, there is even more education and awareness necessary, because I'm seeing patients in their 20s with breast cancer. I was shocked. So we are not supposed to wait until we see some sign that something is wrong. I encourage all Jamaican women, go out once per year at least and do your screening for breast cancer. It actually saves lives. It has been shown to save lives when we are able to detect early. And I know we do have some concerns, both for breast cancer and for prostate cancer. Our men don't want anybody physically examining them for prostate cancer. That's what it is in Jamaica. But guess what? No physical examination is needed for your pre-screening. The technology has moved to a place where just a blood test will do. And I said to a fellow gentleman who has passed the age of 40, remember, you don't only have male urologists if you get to the point of needing physical examination. We have female urologists too. So ladies, there is nothing to fear. Men, there is nothing to fear. Screening was comfortable, it was without pain, and it set my mind at ease that once more for another year, I am free and safe from worrying about breast cancer. However, I continue to worry for my sisters in Jamaica who are not aware, who do not spend the time to go out and determine what exactly is happening with my body that looks very normal and looks like nothing is going wrong. Jamaicans, it is critical that we appreciate any form of illness. Death means less productivity for us as a country, for our males and our females. My Minister of Health, Dr. the Honorable Christopher Tufton, will say to us all, and his able support, Honorable Juliet Cuthbert, that a healthy society makes for a far more productive and more prosperous and wealthy society. So Jamaicans, get up, go out there, do your screening. Cancer robs us of our family, it robs us of our friends, it robs us of our fellow Jamaicans. As parliamentarians, and policymakers lead us all. Ensure that ordinary Jamaicans, along with ourselves, decide to stand with our women and our warriors. No one should fight cancer alone. Together, we must fight for tomorrow. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Madam Speaker, I am so happy that we are able to get an opportunity to make our presentation here today, and not even so much presentation, but to bring a level of awareness to our more so females in this country. I want to thank the member from West Rural St. Andrew, East Rural St. Andrew, for her presentation in regards to the appeals that she's making. I too have a level of fear when it comes to doing my routine test, but it is so valuable and so important. Madam Speaker, I was made aware a few months ago that breast cancer is the second leading in terms of cancer in women. I think the first is the skin cancer. Cervical, I was told skin, but we could have that debate. But Madam Speaker, I see where we have Madam Speaker, I looked at the we can together to support that we should and we can. And the most important one is the A, to assist those impacted by breast cancer to get information. Madam Speaker, information is the key. Because if you don't have information, you will not know where to turn and what to do. And I believe, especially in the deep rural areas, we really need to take the message out there. Because I can remember meeting a very simple woman, and when she said to me, I am very, very ill, and I have a cyst on my breast. But she did not want to admit that it was cancer. So she continued to say it was a cyst. I said, I'm going to send you to the doctor. She said, no, she's using home remedies. And Madam Speaker, it was not long after that that I heard that woman passed away. I felt bad, because I think I could have done more. So I'm appealing to each and every, and it's not a female illness, it also occurs in male. Probably it is less, but it is still exists in males. I'm appealing to us as legislators to now look at even some small handbooks, especially for the deep rural areas, that persons believe that home remedy can be the key, that we start to get them that awareness and also to give them the support that they need. So I join in making sure that this month and beyond, that we take the messages where they need to go in order that we can save lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
I was very encouraged last week when the men on this side actually made the call. The men on this side asked, ladies, is next week Parliament, and what are you girls planning to say regarding breast cancer awareness? I just want to commend our male parliamentarians who are very supportive of women who face this challenge. And Madam Speaker, as an MP in the rural constituency, I'm joining with MP Denise Daly in this call that we have aggressive public education, and we also see how best we can assist them with funding, because many of them may not have the means to fight. So, you know, after diagnosis, what happens? And I just want to say that on behalf of the government, to the women out there who are battling breast cancer, we are with you in the fight. Keep fighting.
Madam Speaker, today has been a very rich day, and I really want to thank the members of Parliament who contributed to the State of Constituency debate, as well as Minister of Finance and his team that contributed to the report of the Select Committee to consider the bill entitled the Custom Act, and to thank the Most Honorable Juliet Holness on the motion of adjournment to speak to breast cancer and cancer overall that affect our men and our women. And I just have to add that the theme is Close the Care Gap. And so I'm just appealing to everyone, remember, close the care gap. We can be very caring and considerate in treating with cancer. So, Madam Speaker, it is not contemplated for us to do any further business today. I therefore ask that the House adjourns until tomorrow, Wednesday, October 5, when the State of Constituency debate will continue and presentations will be made by Member of Parliament Philip Paulwell, who represents East Kingston and Port Royal, and MP Crystal Lee, who represents Northwest St. Anne. So we're looking forward to their presentations tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course, there will be a statement by Minister Marlene Malahoo Ford on the Bail Act. So we look forward to another rich session tomorrow.
Members, the
Madam
question
Speaker?
before the House is that the House do adjourn until tomorrow, Wednesday, the 5th of October at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favor? And everybody who said aye, please be here at 2 p.m. sharp. This House is now adjourned.